Okay, hey, this is Francisca, and welcome to my mid-crisis life. I nearly forgot the name of my own, whatever this is, for a second there. Okay, so what do I want to talk about today? So, last Saturday, my mum feels crazy dry. Last Saturday, I went on a date with this guy, okay? And, I've not dated in like 3 years, by choice. I didn't want to be out there. I wasn't really interested in pursuing anything. And anyway, whatever. This guy asked me out and he was ticking like a lot of boxes. I was really excited for this date before I went on the date. And we went out. We spent like nearly 5 hours talking. We spoke the whole way through the dinner. We walked around. We talked. He drove me home. We talked for an hour on the journey back. We talked for another hour and a half outside my house. We talked a lot, yeah. So I thought that it had been quite a successful date and I'd quite enjoyed myself and I'd had a good time and it was enjoyable, right? But I left the guy's car and from that moment, he's just completely ghosted me. Like, completely ghosted me. Not even a text message to say, hey, good time, but I don't think it's going to work out. Really sorry. Have a nice life. Nothing. Just completely fucking... Oh, hello. Yeah. So completely ghosted me. And anyone that knows me and anyone that watches this, I'm sure you can imagine the impact on me and, my fragile self-esteem that had for someone to do that to me. What can I say? Obviously, I did or I said something during that date that means that I have such little value to this person that he can't even say, not for me, but thanks, have a nice life. Like, okay. And aside from like obviously it bruising my ego, which for sure it did, and the impact on my self-worth and all of that stuff around like my need for validation and like I mean, obviously there's all of that, and then as well as that, yeah, okay, cool, that I understand that this is more about him, that it's not about me, that I don't know, clearly he doesn't know how to communicate or doesn't want to take ownership for negative, having difficult conversations, like, or conflict or confrontation or whatever it is that maybe he's trying to avoid. And also the fact that he's just completely not who he presented to be. That one action just indicates that everything that he said that he is, whether he thinks that he is that person or not, his actions don't represent that, right? And also, like, so yeah, aside from those things, it's like, okay, so we really did have good conversation and he gave me a lot of food for thought. And he reminded me of certain things that I really needed to hear. And even if that was all it was in isolation, that's a really like positive thing. And that means that it's kind of absolutely perfect, irrespective of anything that happened afterwards. So there's all of that going on, right? Yeah, my camera keeps falling over. So yeah, aside from like those three things, like dealing with my own ego, the shit around my self-esteem, the fact that I understand that it says more about him than it does about me, and also the fact that, in isolation, there was a lot that I gained from that experience, and therefore it is perfect. Aside from those things, really, when I check it, it's like the same kind of unfair injustice story coming up for me, you know, that I had some expectation that because I had like suffered for like 3 years, because I'd decided to take time out to grow myself and I'd worked on myself and I wasn't a serial monogamist like all these other people that I see serial dating. They can't never be without a man. Like, because I was better than all of those people, somehow that equates to an expectation that the first time that I meet someone, that, you know, it's going to be perfect, that we're going to fall in love, and that I'm basically going to star in my own fucking rom-com minus the the obstacle in the middle of the film. Like, this is honestly what I believed, you know, that because I'd done all of this and I'd made these sacrifices, that I was deserved of something more and something better. And this morning, because it really did kind of affect me, like, I mean, it's never happened to me before, mainly because I don't put myself out there, but I'm sure anybody who has been ghosted or just like kind of left without any closure, like any understanding as to what happened, it really does make you feel like, okay, what did I do? What did I say? What did I do wrong? What's wrong with me that this person doesn't even care to, like, doesn't even see enough value to just have baseline courtesy, you know? And it really does have an effect on you. Well, it's had an effect on me for sure. So this morning I was meditating on it, and I was meditating on like the pain of this, like, it's not fair thing. And as I was meditating, I suddenly got this vision, right? Like this, like helicopter panning round, circling like a mountainside, right? And like the top of this mountain, there was like 2-year-old me dressed in like full dictator uniform. I had the dictator stick, I had the dictator hat, I had the dictator fucking army shit on, like and she was giving all the orders from the top of this mountaintop, right? She was telling everybody what the fuck was up and how things were going to run. And I saw her like barking orders at people and then like screaming her head off when things didn't go her way, and like smashing her head into like jagged rocks and stuff when things didn't work out the way that she wanted to. And it was like this big realization that this 2-year-old is standing on a mountaintop in the core of me, running the fucking show and having tantrums and self-harming when the orders that she's given out don't come to fruition in the way that she expects them to. And I think that there's a very strong likelihood that something happened when I was 2.5, that caused there to be like a fracture in my growth at that time. And that 2-year-old really feels like she needs to show up a lot of the time, in order to manage things, in order to stay safe. And I guess that's definitely something to look into, that I want to do some more work around. But right now, that's not really what I'm talking about. That's not the point of this video. I think the point of what I want to say is that this 2-year-old, me now at 2 and at 22, 32 and 40, she has certain expectations. I have certain expectations about how the world works. Yeah, I did this, so therefore I get that. You know, I waited 3 years, so therefore when I choose to go back out into the world, it's going to be easy, and I'm going to have this like easy, immediate, lifelong companionship that's just going to be gifted to me because I did this. It's like, if I suffer, then I am deserved more than other people. who don't suffer. But equally, nobody suffers as much as me because it's all relative to me, right? And the thing is, expectation is a really tricky thing, right? And I always talk about how it's important to have intention and not expectation, right? That the intention of having more, or being rich, or being fulfilled, or being in abundance, that you should have that, but you shouldn't have the expectation, the like when, where, how, who, what, wherefore, etc., etc., etc. Because when you start placing those variables there on whatever it is that you want to feel in the future, more time it just leads to disappointment, right? And I guess the thing that makes it even more complex for me is that my self-value is that the thing that makes it more complex is that my self-value is equated to the expectation of when, where, what, how. And if that doesn't happen in the way that I expected it to, then somehow that means that I'm less valuable, which is like a really tricky thing. But I think that this situation was like so acute and so obvious and so so vicious that it kind of showed me that what I thought that I wanted, all of those expectations that I had, all of those variables that I had chosen and put in place, that was presented to me in this guy, it is just so not what I deserve. So it shows you kind of like the limitations of my own expectations on anything good happening in my life. That I believe that these things wrapped up in this way, presenting as this thing, is what I deserve. But really, actually, this situation is showing me that, and very quickly and very painfully, that essentially, like, it's like, I don't know shit. That's really what it's showing me. It's showing me that God knows and wanted to give me Exhibit A. He wanted to give me like a clear, immediate, undeniable example of the fact that I don't know what's best, and really I don't know shit when it comes down to it. So I think the big question for me at the moment is like, how do I surrender? How do I surrender my expectations? How do I surrender my desires? How do I surrender my know-it-all self? How do I surrender my values that are like attached to all of these concepts, like my value, my self-worth? It's like, how do I trust, right? Because to surrender, you have to trust. You have to trust that things are going to work out, that things are going to be okay. Like, how do I trust in God? How do I trust in the process? How do I trust in there being balance and there being justice? Just not in the way that I determine it to be, you know? And right now, I don't really know if I can surrender, if I can have that trust, if I can have that faith, really, when it comes down to it, that I am deserved of whatever it is that I am deserved of, an intention in my heart, that that is going to be good. So I guess for now, the only thing that I can really do is just continue to have gratitude for what is. So that being said, 3 things that I'm grateful for today. Hmm. I'm grateful that I'm hungry and my stomach is rumbling and I have food to eat. There's so many people that don't even have food. I'm grateful that as uncomfortable as my bed is, as hard as that is to sleep on every night, I have somewhere to lie my head down. And I'm grateful that as limited as my funds are, that I do have money, that I'm not begging on the streets for money, that I'm not having to make a decision between eating and being warm. You know, I'm actually ridiculously blessed. So yeah, that's all.